Next to the spacious open space at the beginning of the forest, which organizes the hunt competition, there was another small forest. It seemed that the women waiting for the participants of the competition had been landscaped so that they could have a ballroom while watching the green recording. The long table decorated with flowers in the center was mostly full, as the Countess said everybody. The organizer clapped her hands and concentrated. "Everyone look here who I brought with me. Oh my God, it looks like you've arrived." Each of the women who followed Countess Dorothea into the hall gave a word of appreciation. Many people talk with their mouths covered with soft fans, so it was not clear if it was a positive reaction. You don't have to be picky about it. I didn't know who it was anyway, even when I looked at her face. The tea party was attended by a wide range of people from young to old ladies. What was a little curious was that, unlike me, most of them had a maid behind them. Besides, there was no woman like me in a hunting suit. It was a fact that I already noticed earlier, but my mouth was bitter because I felt like I was being shot dead after confirming that I was wearing a standout costume alone. Should I have brought Emily? She didn't tell me to go with her, so I left her. I had some regrets. I was worried that I might be called a bold and rude princess, because I didn't recognize her for no reason, so I decided to refrain from speaking as much as possible. "Thank you for inviting me." I lowered my head moderately so that I wouldn't look too low. The eyes filled me with unknown intentions. It was similar to when Countess Dorothea had a strange look on her face after receiving my greetings earlier. "Come sit this way, princess." Fortunately, Countess Dorothea hurriedly sat me down to see that she wasn't trying to do something childish like invited me and left me unattended. It was next to the table where the party's organizer sat, drawing the most attention. Considering Penelope's reputation, it was a bit of a surprise. "Please pour the tea to the princess," Countess Dorothea instructed the maid who was standing behind her. The steaming yellow tea poured into the teacup in front of me. "This is a precious tea leaf my husband brought back from his trip to Satina. Try it." At the suggestion of the gentle Countess Dorothea, I slowly picked up the teacup. I was so uninterested in this society that I was scolded by the Duke for didn't hanging out with other aristocrats. But it's a bit awkward to be sitting in a seat like this. Oh, I'm a little nervous. Carefully smelling the aroma, I took the teacup to my mouth, pretended to take a sip and put it down again. "It smells great, Countess." In fact, it wasn't so good. Perhaps because it was foreign, the tea was smelled by the smell of a mildly offensive smell. But I knew I shouldn't say it straight at a place like this. "Really, I'm glad you said so. Everyone does, doesn't?" Countess Dorothea smiled loudly and asked for everyone's sympathy. "You know what, there's good news." This time again some women gently covered their mouths with fans. It seemed that my first greeting had been completed quite successfully, and I breathed a sigh of relief. It was then. "Princess, I heard you did a great job on the eve." One of the lady who was sitting across from me pulled her chair close and asked, "I wonder if she's about 15 or 16. The big eyes of the girl, who still looked very young, twinkled with curiosity. "Oh well, that's a tremendous performance." I smiled awkwardly and waved my hands. Modesty is nobility, and she was proud alone. In that attitude a lady who was unknown shouted lovingly, blushing her cheeks, "Since yesterday the palace has been rocked by your story." "Is that so?" that lady added suddenly with a sullen look. "Yes, I'm not feeling well, so I went back to Cavanna earlier and didn't see it." "No, Lady Heiress, you missed that rare scene?" Before I could even answer, I heard a startled question. I glanced over there, however. She quickly turned off my attention because her face was indistinguishable, because she was one of those who covered his mouth with a fan. "Lady Heiress, right?" Instead, I recounted the name of lady who first expressed her favor. I do some memorize so that there would be no difficulties later on, and it was to build friendship with peers, as the Duke said. Meanwhile, the women sitting down began to chat about me. Princess Eckhart was so good at shooting arrows. It was spectacular to see that beast creatures dying. "Really, oh, I miss you so much." "That's right. Lady Heiress will regret leaving the banquet hall early yesterday." "But lady, how could you improve your bow so quickly?" Most of the time it was old ladies who opened their mouths. Before I knew it, the swings quietly treated me, who was higher than them. I noticed it right away, but I didn't bother to show it. It was a propensity everywhere. "You've had a terrible reputation, but you're a gentleman." There was no need to spoil the flow of the atmosphere with a bad air. So I mumbled with a moderate smile. If you practice hard with a good teacher, your crossbow skills will improve quickly. Oh my god, guess who else did you practice to shoot this time? Then the woman sitting diagonally mumbled, covering her mouth with her hand fan. The voice full of a bit mocking vibe. Yes, I looked at the woman carefully, wondering if I heard it right. The blue hair was an impressive for a young lady of my age. Her eyes curled beautifully as if to say hello when they met mine. What is it? It was such a gentle face that I didn't think what I just heard was a sarcastic remark toward me. Haha, did Lady Kellen see the princess's performance yesterday? Then the organizer naturally led the frozen conversation for a while. Suddenly I felt a sense of déjà vu. Lady Kellen, I've heard that name before. Meanwhile, a woman named Lady Kellen responded with a broad smile. Of course, Countess, how were you, lady? Tell me more about it. Lady Eris again jeered wildly, shaking her body in the room. Obviously it's my story, but somehow I felt like I wasn't the subject. But no one thought so. Everyone focused their attention on the lips of Lady Kellen, who was peeling away. In fact, I was relieved the princess shot the crossbow. What kind of relief? Oh, come to think of it, Lady Kellen has praised the princess for her archery skills since last year, right? The ladies responded to Lady Kellen's words one after another. You praise me for my skills? I don't think so. The moment I tilted my head at the absurd remarks of the lady. A fact flashed past my head. Oh my god. It was only then that I realized who that blue hair was. I didn't do it myself, and I thought I would never run into it, so I completely forgot. Last year she's the girl who became the queen of the hunting competition because of Penelope was so furious to kill her with crossbow. I'm ruined. An eerie chill passed by with a back's talk. Somehow I had a bad foreboding that this might not be a good place for Penelope. No, for me. It reminds me of the princess from last year's hunting contest. When she was facing such an internal storm, Kellen or Kilo, whatever her name is, continued calmly. You pointed a crossbow at me saying, you'd show me a trick of catching a mosquito flying near me with an arrow. Oh my god, at her words everyone looked sideways at me and gave me an exclamation. Was the rumor really true? Countess Dorothea asked back, making a fuss. I don't know what the rumor is, but the princess never aimed at me for a reason that is inconsiderate and undignified. Don't get her wrong, she was kind enough to catch mosquitoes. I couldn't help but hate the way his blue hair answered with a smile. Hey, just swear to me openly. She was very good at gossiping in front of my face. She's so proud of myself, and last year's Penelope was so angry that she would shoot and kill her without covering water. My heart was heavy with bad words about you because of last year's incident, and that's a relief. But gossip didn't end there. The blue head looked at me and drove in a wedge. Yesterday you were hitting beast as big as house, not a small mosquito, so you don't have to worry. Mistake people as one. What I want to say is the princess is not blind. In direct translation, it doesn't make sense that you can't hit that big beast unless you're blind. It meant that why can't the anxious premonition be missed even once? It seemed to me now that Duke knew the purpose of sending a maid directly from the early morning to get involved with me in this meeting. Somehow I thought the smiles were strange. The women who succeeded in setting a trap with the head of the egg began to shoot their poison dart excitedly at today's game. I used to learn some archery when I was a child, but next time I'll try to target a big target like a princess. Then, princess, your outfit looks good on you today. Some ladies even talked about the clothes. Thank you, I just pretended I didn't know. Then there was an apparent sneer from here and there. Things that don't make any sense. It was annoying, but it was bearable because it wasn't really about me. What else can we do now that this body has committed a crime in the past? If you go wild for no reason and get into the Duke's or Derek's ear, at that time it could be a matter that is directly related to life. Moreover, I felt a little sorry for the Duke, who was delivering the invitation to the tea party with more anticipation than concerned about the party. That's why I was going to keep my seat so that I couldn't be more faulty. Even though I laughed, I was a little uncomfortable with my appearance without agitation, and the blue hair shook her mouth again. You seem to be going on a monster hunt again today, don't? Come to think of it, that crossbow, the crossbow that killed the beast yesterday, right? Lady Eris pointed her finger at the crossbow on my back. Even she felt rude because she knew the purpose of the meeting. Yes, I answered without sincerity. It's been a long time since I stopped smiling. Oh, good for you listening to Eris, Countess Dorothea said, clapping her hands. Princess, I'm very sorry that she didn't see you yesterday. I didn't want to ask you, but since you're carrying it to the crossbow, please show off your bow, will you? You dress to the occasion match, that sounds good. Kellen took the speak. In fact, I recently received a big teddy bear for my birthday. I brought some to show you at the tea party today, and it would be perfect if you used it as a target. Oh, Lady Kellen, what if there is a hole in your precious gift? It's much smaller than yesterday's evil, so maybe it won't happen. Ho ho ho, that's right, that's possible. The ladies again flicked their fans and burst into laughter. Get me what you've prepared, yes, miss. Without even listening to my permission, Kellen began to set the stage as she pleased. Oh my God, you've already got the target ready? I thought I'd see where she was going, so I leaned back against my back and watched quietly with my arms crossed. My eyes were pointed at their increasingly arrogant attitude. After a while, the maid who had left walked with a big teddy bear the size of her body, and asked, standing a little away from the back of Kellen, "Where should I put all the targets, miss?" "Princess, which spot would you like? I think this distance would be enough." Kellen pointed to the maid, who was standing with a face desperately holding back the burst of laughter. "It's just around the corner, so there's less risk of shooting people like last year." "Isn't that right, everyone?" The women nodded and sympathized with her question. "Lady Kellen is right, that's about right. It's a big deal if you get too far for nothing and the blind arrow bounces wrong. Wake up and show us your skills, Princess, while I'm so excited." Lady Eris clapped her hands like a child. I felt pathetic a little while ago, when I mistook the girl's shiny eyes for curiosity. In a way, curiosity is curiosity. It was like watching a zoo chimpanzee or a clown performing tricks. It must have created an atmosphere that I couldn't resist because I first used her as a windbreaker. There was nothing more to look back on. Everyone will be looking at me with a derisive look similar to Eris. Therefore I stared at the leader who would have encouraged the nobles to plan this position. She had a deep smile around her mouth when she saw me, lost my expression. "Let's see if you're going to running around like you did last year?" The eyes mixed with contempt and joy seemed to tell me so. Penelope in the game had two options. They either go with clowns as they want, or they run wild to shoot everyone as crazy as she did last year. If it was a real Penelope, it's just an option to be annoyed. It was not difficult to show the crossbow skills as hoped. But then the princess's ridiculous crossbow show, held at a tea party, will be spread out by tomorrow. But if you're angry and upset, you dare to mock me. You're going to be the queen of the hunting festival with a vote of sympathy again, aren't you? Perhaps what Kellen wants is close to this. It would be better if you completely trampled on a princess who you don't even want to see in society. Either way, there was nothing wrong with her. Then you can just choose both of them. Kellen tilted her head and called me when I didn't seem to move at all in my arm position. "Princess," I was facing her and suddenly picked up a smile. "Would a teddy bear be a little difficult?" Yes, my answer embarrassed her. It seemed strange that the princess, who immediately thought she would burst into a groan, was quiet. "Why, unfortunately, that size is not enough to show you my skills." I glanced sideways at the teddy bear and recited it languidly. "Oh my God," Countess Dorothea barged, "and then how big should it be to show your skills? Do you need a monster-sized target like you hit yesterday?" The blue hair, backed by the support of others, mumbled excessively. "But what do we do, Princess? I don't think there's a master craftsman who makes such a big doll." I know, what a pity. The words burst into laughter here and there. Well, I got up from my seat, dragging my chair noisily as if to ignore the Olans. I then turned the crossbow forward with a soft, elegant touch. "I think it would be quite good if you matched the flies flying around your snout." A bolt of steel, it was done naturally like a stream, until at last the bow was aimed at one. What do you think? I looked around with my eyes down. The laughter of the women who had been giggling until the last minute slowly died down. No one immediately noticed that I would aim the crossbow at Lady Kellen as soon as I woke up. Because there was no notice, Kellen and other aristocrats, who belatedly recognized the situation, opened their eyes. One of the elderly ladies who had been bothering her with the fan shouted loudly, "Princess Eckhart, this, how can you aim a bow at a person again?" Princess, I coldly cut off the woman's, and as if it wasn't worth seeing, I trampled tragically with only my eyes moved. When did Eckhart's name start to go up and down in the mouth of an old woman who doesn't know her place? That the face of the lady warmed up to see if it was a shame to say that the family is so shy that she doesn't even know her place. But I couldn't resist myself more. It may have been respected for being old within the tea party, but because the empire was strict with hierarchy. In the noisy forest where the tea party was held, an unbecoming silence fell. Princess, calm down. Lady Kellen spoke with a calmer face than expected. If you keep doing this, we'll have no choice but to call a guard like last time. Wouldn't that make it difficult for the princess to be in that position? It was a provocation, a mental worker who was trying to make me in tight position. Guards were stationed in the vacant lot just next to the forest where the tea party was held. It was obvious that last year's Penelope, who didn't know how to shoot, would have gone wild with a groan with a crossbow in her hand. Enough for the guards who heard the commotion to jump right away. It wasn't hard to guess that the reason this girl was suddenly armed was for threats and self-defense. Learning the crossbow by nature, I realized that this body had no talent for martial arts. If I knew I would shoot an arrow at all, I would not have had such smooth fingers and no arm muscles. Foolish bitch, why didn't I know that if I used my brain a little bit, I could easily break the spirit? The calm appearance, even though she talked about the guard, was filled with anxiety over that woman's face. This time it won't be as easy as last year. So I'm going to have to drop the crossbow. Then go get them once again, I picked, twisting the corners of my mouth and tinkling. All the women's faces were shocked by my response. The princess, who would have gone wild even if she screamed and went wild, is told to call in the guard herself. Perhaps it was an amazing act. The blue hair looked at me again with unfamiliar eyes. But I tilted my head slightly with an innocent smile, as if I knew nothing. Would it be faster to bring in a guard, or would it be faster for me to shoot things that move? I could hear a sharp gulp nearby. Maybe it's because of the different momentum from last year, when she looked so stupid. I said, go get them. None of the maids, who had been flabbergasted as if they were going to call for a guard right away either, could think of moving the forest silence with no breath. Only the sound of my fingers slowly groping the trigger went dreary. Princess, if it you doing this? Lady Kellen called me urgently. The Duke's crazy dog really tries to shoot people to death. Now I can feel some seriousness, and the blue-haired eyes, which had remained calm to the end, shook wildly, soaked in fear. And then snap! No matter who heard it, the sound of pulling the trigger rang out loud. When the women, including Lady Kellen, closed their eyes with a vain face. Bang! I mimicked the gunshot with my mouth. Naturally, there was no bead that was fired. It's a joke. I grinned and lowered the crossbow I was aiming at. Hiccup! Lady Eris, who was sitting opposite, burst into hiccups. Until just before, faces full of contempt and ridicule had already been eroded by intense fear. I must be a real villain. It was not pitiful, but rather a sight to behold. Why are you so scared? I didn't even load everyone. I held up the crossbow in one hand and pulled the trigger a couple more times. It was just to show that it was safe, and each time the thin shoulders trembled. I set the crossbow around my back again, and I looked around the table and acted as if nothing had happened. Relax your facial expressions. As if a tomboy, pouting her lips when the reaction seemed to be poor. After a mischievous prank, she said with a frown. I feel like I'm the villain who came to ruin the tea party. I was invited formally to you. Aren't you Countess Dorothea? As I looked back at the organizer and asked her, she jumped out of place. Well, yes. Princess quickly regained consciousness. She exclaimed hurriedly. Hey, everybody smiled. Princess played such a funny joke to make us laugh. But no one laughed at the prank. I have to go hunting now, so I'll get up first. I got out of the back of the chair. Since the atmosphere is frozen because of me, shouldn't the person who caused the inconvenience avoid the right place? I added with a look of regret after getting ready to leave. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to show you my skills. My crossbow's bolt is not an arrow but a magic bead. I'll show you when I get a chance next time. I was about to turn around and walk. Oh my! I stopped walking again and turned my head to the table, as if there was something I had forgotten and couldn't say before. I'm telling you in particular because I'm afraid some of you might be wondering what magic it is. My crossbow bead has a magic of making the right things turn into an idiot. I calmly uttered falsehoods and started with the main culprit behind the plot, and met each ones one by one. Thanks to someone I couldn't hunt for a year, and I was itching. To the point where they make these beads for me to catch the game. I went back to the beginning and fixed my eyes to the blue hair. I smiled with a smile and finally hit the wedge. Of course it is made for small animals, so even if it's hit right it won't die. I wonder if magic will works for people. And Lady Kellen turned around in the background, turning blue like a doze-off. I was just on the way to the central vacant lot after finishing my threat to watch her mouth. My eyes suddenly brightened. Reputation has been reduced to -10 total. 80 I has lost my reputation. I poked my lips for a while, then passed the system window without minding it. It's not like being likable unless it's directly connected to my life. It was none of my business to fall for fame or reputation. Hey, where should I go to the animal hunting zone? I grabbed a guard who was passing by and asked him the way, and after hearing the answer, I took a step toward the main purpose I had thought of in the morning. After the entrance to the hunting ground, there was a way to go, and the right road was my destination. What can I get you? Recalling the inorganic gray eyes, I walked along the forest path with light steps. But on the other side of the road I'd been to, it wasn't the animal hunting ground I imagined. What is this? I gazed at the endless stretch of trees and grass. What I thought was, of course, that the servants would gather only the small animals separately, fence them in a certain area and lock them up, so that beginners can experience it easily. You said it's a place where kids can catch them, and it's just a forest. Yes, it was just a forest. I looked all over the place, but the animals didn't show up at all. It seemed to have been roughly arranged by releasing large and small animals separately from the crossroads. There are few parents who bring their children anyway, and most of the female aristocrats don't participate. Why everything about this game so strange? I trudged along the forest path, complaining. Fortunately, the road was well structured and there was no reason to get lost. But even if I went deeper along the road, I wondered if I could catch, or even find quick animals running freely. Let's just say we're going for a walk since we're here. I gave up my pledge to hunt neatly and walked down the street. But not long after walking, I realized that it was a hasty give-up. Wow, it's a white rabbit, as white as snow, was hopping in a short distance. There were not only one but as many as 4. Cute. Actually, I have never seen an animal other than a dog or a cat in my life. It is because I have never been to a zoo where others have been bored. Because of this, even though I found out the hunting area, I couldn't catch them straightly. No. Don't go. In the meantime, a group of rabbits, who sensed the human metal, ran away at a rapid. I got sullen and walked the road again. Soon after, the same thing just happened again. Squirrels, blue squirrels, raccoons, chickens, wild cats, and even small deer. I ran into a game of foot-and-mouth to see if I was in charge of the area where the animals were released. Sadly, it was just a meeting. The prey ran away quickly, either during sightings or around the crossbows. I was too novice level to hunting. It was fortunate that I was the only one around. It would have been a disaster if I had been formally involved in the hunt, following the Duke with useless courage. With the sense of shame coming, I walked half-heartedly, with the attitude of being able to shoot the crossbow straight. I was entering deeper and deeper woods. I've found a hunt that I like more than anything I've ever met. Awesome! It was a gray-haired fox that looked just like Eccles's eye color. That's it, I was sure at once. That's the prey I'm supposed to catch and take today. The gray fox was quenching his neck by a small stream below the slope. It was a rare kind of paper, but unlike other animals, there was only one. If I miss it, there will be no soup either. I shifted my foot carefully. I had to get a little closer because a tree on the slope was subtly covering the angle that I could aim at. I was careful not to make a sound, but soon I reached my target tree. Half hidden on a wooden post, I slowly turned the crank. At that moment, the fox's ears pricked. However, it was still scratching water to see if it felt any signs. Finally, the load is complete. I slowly picked up the crossbow and aimed. By the time the target came into the center of the bow, body perfectly. The fox, who was drinking water at a leisurely pace, suddenly raised his head. And as soon as I pulled the trigger, it started running. The bead fired by a single stroke missed. The distance from the fox who sensed the threat began to widen in an instant. Don't know, I can't miss it. Is this what a hunter feels like when he misses all his prey? I started running recklessly after the fox. I was so sorry and impatient that I couldn't catch it by a hair's breadth. I'll catch it soon. Unfortunately, it was my arrogance. The fox was incredibly fast. I can't believe how that little body comes with that speed and stamina. I wanted to run after it, but my weak body soon ran out. Oh my gosh, I ended up missing the fox. But that fox wasn't the problem. I ran to the depths of the forest because I ran frantically to chase the fox. Where the hell am I? When I looked around, I couldn't even find a well-structured road. Let's find the mark first. Even if it's a forest, it's inside the palace anyway. I managed to raise the possibility that signs were installed throughout the hunting grounds to prevent any possible disaster. After a complete failure in hunting, I trudged my steps. Fortunately, I could quickly find a golden cloth tied to a tree. That's a relief. I was relieved. Now if I walk along that, I'll be able to meet other people or get out of the woods. But my obsession was that I couldn't remember what the color of the mark meant. Soon after, I was able to meet another prey. No, an animal that can be called a prey for hunter to hunt me because the host has changed. What is it? I saw a huge bear popping out of the bushes without warning. I opened my mouth big. Only then did I remember the golden mark means the area where predators such as lions and tigers are released. It was that moment an unexpected quest has occurred. An excited giant brown bear has appeared. Would you like to hunt the giant bear and lay the groundwork for becoming queen? Time limit 30 seconds. Reward: giant bear skin and gallbladder. Reputation plus 50. Favorability plus 5%. Accept or reject. You crazy game, what's going on here? I shuddered with amazement as I looked at the system window. The big beast, who looked twice as tall as I was, recognized by humans and was wary of them, breathing out his nose. It was huge enough to believe that it was a monster, not an animal. What the hell? I managed to hold on to my confused mind and measure my distance from the beast. The bear was quite far from the crossbow to shoot. Of course, I knew how fast and dangerous wild bears were regardless of distance. However, as if there was a game arrangement for the unexpected quest, the bear was bleeding with an arrow on its shoulder and leg. It was chased by other hunters, and it seemed to me that it was the weakest. The bear barked furiously enough not to catch the eyes of arrows and blood. I felt as if my eyes were about to burst on it. I saw a limp in its injured leg, but I didn't feel any relief. Damn it, I was frustrated. What kind of dating simulation game do that I have to do bear hunting? With tears in my eyes, I pressed accept because I had no choice. Hit red point with weapon start 30 wow. As soon as a new article appeared in the square window, the bear began to rush toward me. I stared at the crossbow without even having to read it properly. Looking back, I flashed the red dot size of a soccer ball in 3 places: the head, body, and legs of a bear running on its 4 feet, and in the air I could see the number that just fell to 29. It was a familiar scene. This is because even in normal mode there was a mini-game in these game. But it was like finding the wrong picture or putting the puzzle together at best. It's so sad to be possessed by a wicked woman. Why is the quest given hard mode so brutal? Fortunately, the bear ran slowly because of the leg injury. I revived what I had been practicing and aimed at the blinking red dot. It was fortunate that the target was large in size. Let's start with the body that I thought would be the easiest to match. The bear that was running stopped and convulsed with a groan. It was because the bead hit the mark and was shocked. I hit it. I took a breath and swept my heart away. I was so nervous before I knew it, and my back of my neck was sweating. It's all over now, right? I waited breathlessly for the bear to fall. However, the quest window did not appear, saying that I succeeded even though he hit it right. In addition, 21. I think big numbers are still counting in the air. I hurriedly lowered my gaze. The staggered bear tossed a little blankly at one-sided look. Then it raised its head suddenly. The eyes met. Far from falling down, the bear revealed it by looking at the prey it faced. 1 red dot on the huge body disappeared, and the remaining 2 kept blinking. Don't tell me. A stream of cold sweat ran through my forehead. I have to hit all 3 right? At a time when I was embarrassed by an unexpected situation. The bear began to jump again. It was much faster than just before. I noticed the reason. The magic in the bead erased the moment's memory, forgetting the pain in the leg momentarily. In the fast-paced distance I stepped back in horror. The lost hand pulled the trigger unknowingly. Bang! A few more shots were fired and hit the beast's body. The same thing just happened again. After a brief twitch in shock, the bear found me and began running back. Thump. A slight vibration was sounded by the heavy weight. What? Oh my god, now the time limit is 14 seconds. I aimed the crossbow at the red spot, keeping a close eye on the bear, who stumbled but was about to rush again. I think it's a little dangerous. Fear crept up the bridge, perhaps because I wasn't in the right mind. The tip of the arrow kept shaking. I wasn't a skilled archer at all, therefore I had to not move on the spot to hit the target. I stopped, backing up at the risk of getting closer to the bear. I barely got a red dot near its head. This time the bear fell with a roaring sound. Perhaps due to the heavy blow, I took a few quick steps back, breathing my patience. 9. Before I knew it, the countdown was less than 10 seconds. Now the red dot on the leg was the last. I plopped up the crossbow again. In the meantime, the bear raised itself with a screech. It was a monstrous mill, having been beaten by beads several times already. 5. Now 5 seconds. It was an urgent situation. I hurried to aim at the crossbow without letting go of my nervousness. I only have to get one last chance, but it was the last time. It was difficult. This is because even a giant bear had not been able to hold its body properly, and continued to stumble. The blinking red dot moved around the launched bead, brushed off its thick leg, and hit the ground. 3. In the meantime, the time limit is just about to end. But what happens when the time's up? Suddenly an eerie chill ran through my spine. If the game system only has to hit all the bear's weak spot to kill the bear, that damn bear could still be alive after the quest failed. Unlike the system window, this was a reality that I experienced and rolled myself. No matter how many times he was hit by the crossbow, the giant beast did not die. 1. And finally the countdown has been completed. I couldn't concentrate because of that thought occupying my head, and in the end I missed the final blow. Great bear hunting quest failed. Would you like to try again? Limited time 10 seconds. Reward: giant bear skin, gallbladder, fame plus 50, favorability of plus 5%. Accept, reject. The quest failed, and the time limit for the re-challenge was drastically reduced to 10 seconds. I quickly pressed accept without question about it, because the bear was ready to rush to me with his mouth wide open. There was only one last leg point where the blinking red dot was not matched, whether it was following the previous attempt, but it wasn't fortunate at all. If I don't get that right, I'll die. A certain sense of death ate into the throat. I had not been able to widen the distance from the bear because I was concentrating on aiming at the crossbow. I pulled the trigger in a hurry to earn even a little time. But nothing was fired. The bolt-mounted groove was empty. I used up all the beads. I opened my mouth blankly. I brought a cloth with extra beads in my pocket, but I couldn't take it out. Because the giant monster is a step ahead. The front foot of the bear, peaked with sharp claws, was lifted high, its size bigger than my face. I need to get out of here right now, I know from the head. But the body, even if it freezes, I didn't even dream about it. As soon as the giant front foot cut the wind heavily and glided down at me at a tremendous speed. Stay down somewhere. There was a cry of words and a low voice of a man like salvation. The sound made my body move as if I were released myself from hypnosis. I leaned back reflexively, and the bear's front foot brushed past the top of the head with a slight difference. Hair was chilled by the beast's full swing that hit the air. I hear a series of creepy noises that seemed to be poking something. When I came to my senses, everything was already over. A huge new look collapsed with a short death. A heavy tremor that seemed to shake the whole forest rang. It was because the heavy bear's body was scattered on the floor. Blood spreading like water on the ground soaked my shoes and nose. Only then did I slowly raise my head. In the middle of the neck of a giant monster bear, a large long sword was deeply in bloom. What the hell are you doing here? The golden hair glistened in the sunlight that leaked through the leaves. You said you were the Duke's crazy dog, but you're not an ordinary crazy. Were you alone trying to catch this big bear? A man comes to me jumping off a red horse like my eyes. He was the Crown Prince. 2-1 beyond the tall man. The countdown was all over. Due to the timeout, Callisto appeared and killed the giant bear. Great bear hunting quest failed. It's ruined. Was the time limit for ML to appear? I gazed down at the white square window that rose over the crown prince, panting shallowly. What are you looking at so stupidly? At last the crown prince, who had reached a point ahead, opened his mouth when he saw me like that. Then he twisted the corner of his mouth and smiled. Why have you fallen in love again now? Only then did I wake up and frown. That can't be true. I even saved you, but I'm sad, princess, the crown prince recited with a look of no regret. Strangely enough, the sarcastic voice calmed the fast-paced heart. I thought I was really going to die from a bear's blow. The hollow grooves and the giant front paws of the bear that were approaching with a groan. Once again I recalled the moment when my heart was pounding, and my legs trembled and my eyes were dizzy. I breathed slowly, sweeping down my still fluttering chest. Come to think of it, it was more natural not to lead to death just by failing an unexpected quest. It was the same in normal mode as well as in hard mode. Watching the festival with Derek or Leonard quest didn't kill you. Hunting competition would be one of the main episodes of the game, so it was extremely natural to be tied to one of the male hosts in an emergency like failed bear hunting. But why this guy? I hid my crumpled face with my head bowed under the guise of greeting. And I forced myself to express my gratitude. Thank you for saving my life, Your Highness. Thanks to you I was able to escape the crisis. I can't believe you're thinking of going around hunting the beast alone. It's so brave. Instead of responding to the thank you, the crown prince clapped unexpectedly. I wonder what the hell was going on in your head. But no matter how crazy a princess is, she can't catch a bear that size alone. The way he sounded, like admonishing an immature child, suddenly made me feel bad. You think I wanted to? The quest has been ordered me to. The quest. I was so frustrated that I wanted to hit his chest and shout, but above his head favorability 12% stopped me. I know. Instead I replied in a sullen voice. The crown prince moved his shoulders up and down and acted in an exaggerated manner. You know, yes, that's what you knew. I shouldn't have stepped up to steal the princess's prey. Isn't it? I didn't mean to hunt down. I tried to refute his tough tone of voice again, but I took it with patience. I was surprised to see a bear suddenly. Before I were lost chasing a fox, I muttered with a gloomy face. The fox that was chasing finally missed it. Far from hunting, I almost died while catching a mad bear, so I even met number 1 on the watch-out list of hunting competitions. So how can I not be depressed? This is all because of that Ekless guy. What kind of trouble is this to get that damn favor? I lamented the fucking situation and swallowed my tears. I'm devastated by your rescue, Your Highness. Then I'll get going. I made a hurried bow. Regardless of the fact that his favorability has gone away from death, there was nothing good to be involved with the crown prince anyway. The moment I hurriedly said hello and turned around. Wait, the crown prince clasped me by the arm. Take that. What? It was time to look back at him with a puzzled look. The prince, who laid down his arms, suddenly strode to the dead bear's body. Then he grabbed the handle of the long sword which had been lodged in the bear's thick neck, and pulled it down with all his might. Wooduck, with the terrible sound of bone breaking, the bear's head was neatly separated from its body some time later. Crazy, I stared vaguely at the tremendous sight with my mouth open. The crown prince shook off a bloody knife once and put it into a sheath, and walked toward me holding the big head of the rolling bear in one hand. The blood that has not yet hardened fell off and drew a dotted line on the soil. Come on, take it. The crown prince suddenly handed me the head of the monster bear he had brought. I looked at what he had given me with shaking eyes. It was suddenly killed by the crown prince, and the head of the bear, who couldn't even close his eyes, seemed to be still alive and staring at me. Is this a dual application that wasn't explained in the game? Otherwise there is no reason to cut off the head of an animal that has been killed. I tried to revive my memory with a short new effort, but I couldn't remember seeing such a scene in the game no matter how hard I thought about it. I opened my mouth in a trembling voice, glancing sideways over the golden crown. I'm glad to hear that, but I don't have a sword with me right now. It meant that I couldn't fight with you without a sword, but the crown prince spoke nonsense. That's why I cut it off for you. What? I can't take it away right now because it's heavy, so take it and show it to the servants. It was only then that I realized that the reason why he gave me the bear's head was not like a dual request. When I told him I was going, he made me run errands, and he seemed to be trying to keep up the hunt. Bad son of a bitch. How could you order a skinny lady to do this? I couldn't possibly carry the head of a big bleeding bear. I didn't have to, should I? I asked him, carefully looking at his countenance. What nonsense is that? Then he frowned. Only when you take it can you prove that you caught the bear yourself. Yes? My eyes were wide open enough to. I have to take it with me to prove that I caught the bear myself? After a long time of rethinking what it meant, I realized he was trying to yield his prey to me. And it was such an unexpected remark that the leaking voice was trembling. I don't really have to. While I was busy still listening to the chatter on my way, I had no intention of carrying that big head of bear and even making myself notorious as the Duke's crazy chimpanzee who struck the bear alone. In addition, and why is that mine? Your Highness, the Crown Prince has captured it. You've exhausted most of its energy, and I've just stopped its breathing. So there is nothing more than that. This is what the princess has caught. How can this bastard say such a normal thing? I looked at the Crown Prince with newer look more than ever before and politely refused. That's okay, thank you for your kindness, but I really don't need it. I don't think I caught it then, just think as reward for the gift I received earlier. Suddenly I was wondering what you were talking about. I'll personally hunt down for a princess in return for your gift. I remembered what he said while robbing my amulet. I forcibly empowered the reflexive frown. It's really alright, it is much more expensive than a fox. Don't be so stupid and stubborn. Just take it, it's not stupid stubbornness, excuse me, be careful. When I didn't answer, the Crown Prince looked irritated and fierce. And he came a step closer, holding its ears and waving as if he were trying to force it to pass. Blood that had not yet hardened splashed everywhere. I stepped back in a hurry, frowning my face. The blood splashing the clothes, Your Highness, if a hunter has blood on his clothes he should be proud. I don't need that kind of pride. Are you afraid of blood unexpectedly? There was no time to answer that it was not like that. This is because he laughed and shook the head of the body he was holding on purpose. I shrieked away from him despite quick escape. Blood spattered on the shirt inside the jacket. A fishy smell came out. Since then I had been extremely weak. It was not just a matter of blood, but the head of the animal he was holding was horrifying and scary. I looked up at him with a face full of astonishment. What are you doing, Your Highness? Come and take it. Stop it. Again I was frightened and ran away by his crazy behavior that shook the head. By the time I was hiding behind a tree with a wide range of streets, I heard a low laugh from the back. Looking back, there was a smile hanging around the Crown Prince's mouth. At that moment his head glistened. Favorability 15%. The 3% increasing favorability was incredible, so I stared blankly at him and his head alternately. Red eyes bent as I stared at him with the bear's head wide open. Callisto's face was like a demon fresh from hell. Well, is that funny? Yes, I saw Eckhart's crazy dog running away in a fright. That's pretty funny. Do you really have to play with the dead animal carcass? I don't think that's what the man who shot the crossbow to death would say. You're doomed. It was when I was staring at him with my trembling fists clenched. Suddenly a cold drop of water fell on my forehead. The surroundings suddenly became dark. The sky had changed unusually between the prince and the Jade Emperor. Dark clouds swarmed in an instant to cover the sun. It's a shower. The Crown Prince muttered. It wasn't long before the ominous words came true. The number of water drops that had fallen by drop began to increase exponentially. Your Grace, thank you again for saving me. Goodbye. I hurried to greet the Crown Prince. I had to hurry out of the woods before it rained. I didn't want to stay in this fucking hunting ground for another hour. The leg was moving in a hurry over and over. He still grabbed the bear's head and followed me closely like that way. Where are you going? Out of the hunting ground. It's going to rain soon, so I have to get out before it's raining. I answered unkindly. He tilted his head sideways and twisted the corners of his mouth. The princess must have already forgotten that this is in the middle of a deep forest full of predators. I ignored him and just tried to go my way. If a game maker had a conscience, he would have placed this crazy quest only once. It was because of such an idea, but at that moment something flashed up. Compensation: giant bear skin and gallbladder. Reputation plus 50, favorability plus 5%, and the favorability of I stopped walking. Come to think of it, I met the Crown Prince, but his name was not written on the reward. So I never expected him to save me. Then there might be another quest like this until we get out of the woods. This means that unless there is a specific target for compensation, there is a possibility of meeting with another male besides the Crown Prince. Crazy, the idea of meeting them one by one was more terrible than the sudden quest to catch the beast. I literally stopped at the top in my towering seat. I then hurriedly took a cloth containing extra beads out of my pocket, turned the crossbow around and put the beads into the groove. "What are you doing?" The Crown Prince came close to me and asked me, "Turn off your nerves and go your way." I opened my mouth, pressing down on the words that were about to pop out. "As your Highness can see, I am installing bolts." "Why?" "You never know, like you said, there might be another beast on the way." The Crown Prince burst into a laugh as if he were dumbfounded. "You can't deal with big animals with such crude weapons, Princess. Haven't you just experienced it?" "Thank you for your concern, but I'll take care of it, Your Highness." I had no intention of going with him, so I answered with a dull reply. Just follow the quest anyway. Moreover, even the wild beasts of the forest would avoid the rain, so this was only to be prepared. "You seemed to be so proud that you were lucky to catch some evil yesterday." However, the Crown Prince, who was unaware of the situation, seemed to be quite reckless in my actions. "The crossbow is a weapon that can only be eaten by small animals or humans, not even for killing. This time I can really see the scenery of someone becoming a bear food while still alive. Do I have to follow the princess to do that?" He was smiling and arrogantly frowned by the cruel words he added. Suddenly I was a little surprised that he had seen through the crossbow. "How did you know?" "What, my crossbow is not for killing. That's all I can feel, so they could have been allowed to bring in the palace." I was looking at him anew like a lie. The rain began to pour. I looked up at the sky in amazement. Why am I so unlucky? The plan to get out of the forest before it rains heavily has been completely stolen. The heavy rain poured down without a doubt. Looking up into the dark sky, I felt like crying again. I hated being rained on. It was a moment when I was standing in the rain, neither here nor there. Something heavy was covered over the head, where it then come over here. Suddenly I felt warmth in my wrist. This is because the Crown Prince, who caught up with the rest of the steps, gently grabbed my wrist. The Crown Prince led me to where his horse was. The horse was cleverly avoiding the rain under a tree full of branches. He put the bare head which was cut in front of the horse's saddle. And he too jumped on it, and reached out to me, get on. Water dripped from wet golden hair. He had already been soaked in rain because he took off his red cape. "If you walk, you'll become prey for the beast. It's a cape with waterproof and cold spells, so let's wear it and go back together." I gazed blankly at the man's big hand that was extended to me. Then I lowered my eyes with his red cape, which was roughly placed on top of me. It felt strange because there was no option in my head to ride a horse around like the Crown Prince. "Can you give me this?" "What about you, Your Highness? Is the rat thinking of a cat? Or if you don't like it, walk with a crossbow." He turned his head and said rudely, "Do you have a bone in your mouth if you recommend it twice?" I made a sarcastic remark in my heart, but hurriedly turned the crossbow back and fastened the cape that the Crown Prince had put on me. I thought there was quite a height difference, but his cape was as big as any blanket. Therefore, if you were to ride a horse and run fast, it might get caught flapping. "Thank you." Finally, with his cape tied well under my neck, I raised my head, muttering a small thank you note. The Crown Prince's hand, which was handed out to me, was still unearned. It was the moment when I slowly reached out and tried to hold his big hand together. Somewhere in the forest something flew at a tremendous speed, and it was stuck in the Crown Prince's heart without error. Surprised by the sudden attack, the horse rolled its front feet and cried faintly. The hand that stretched toward me disappeared. "Your Highness?" The Crown Prince, who falls off a horse and falls to the floor. Looking at him, I slowly opened my eyes wide. "Your Highness!" At last, when he was crushed to the ground, I ran to him frantically. I couldn't even notice what was going on. The face of the prince, with his eyes closed, was as pale as death. "He's died." My heart sank. Even when I encountered a bear, I felt a fear that I had never felt before. My eyes. Your Highness, open your eyes." I shook the Crown Prince's body like crazy, but the Crown Prince had no movement. A large arrow stuck in his left chest. I'm scared. This is a game." "It's just a game. Why the hell?" I burst into tears. The first cruel scene I ever saw made the accident stop. "Your Highness, please, you're noisy." Fortunately, the eyelids flinched and red pupils were revealed. Don't make a fuss, I'm not dead yet, Your Highness. I was truly relieved it occurred to me late that ML could not die. But the image of Callisto being hit by an arrow was so vividly painted that at that moment I thought he was really going to die. I didn't want to see anyone die in front of me no matter how many times I hit X. The Crown Prince smiled faintly at me, but I don't think what you've given me is ineffective at all. He then pulled out an arrow stuck in his left chest and handed it over. This is a small round token-shaped ornament. It was none other than the golden amulet that he robbed me of. The amulet was too thin to stop the sharp, sturdy arrow. But whether the defensive magic really worked, it lost its original golden color and was blackened. I looked at it with strange eyes and asked, "This, you didn't throw it away?" "Of course I thought you'd throw it away because I thought you took it away to tease me." The Crown Prince flopped up one eyebrow in expression of wonder. "Throw away? You can't deal with milestone once given by someone who shared their feelings." Such a terrible thing to say it was that moment. Once again an arrow flew from somewhere through the rain and fell into the bottom of a tree above his head. I screamed reflexively briefly in amazement. At the same time the Crown Prince jumped out of his seat. "The Queen must be sick again. Come on, get up, Princess, you have to avoid it." Yes, he yanked my shoulder violently. I didn't understand it at all, even though he woke up half asleep. "Why me then? Do you want to stay here and be shot to death? If it's the people from the Empress, they're after Your Highness, so if you go somewhere else." I couldn't stop saying, "You can go, and leave me alone," because the Crown Prince hugged me in his cape. It was an unbelievable strength for a man who was just shot by an arrow and fell off a horse. He put me on the saddle of the horse like a pack push it up in the wind. The bear's head rolled to the floor, but no one cared. "What are you doing?" I was puzzled by what had happened in an instant and asked. "Stop talking nonsense, Princess. The only witnesses who came to assassinate the Crown Prince will be sent back to you." The Crown Prince jumped on the horse with an irritating glance. "Giddy up," and he pulled the horse's reins tightly, locking me between his arms. The red horse began to run like a fire. At the same time 2 arrows crossed from the side this time. The Crown Prince kicked his tongue as if it were annoying, bowed his head and dodged them lightly, and hugged me more tightly in his arms as if to protect me. Perhaps because of the urgent situation it didn't come very moving. Am I being caught up in an assassination now? I just wanted to cry now at the probability of this crazy game. When the clouds were dark I should have moved away from this fellow without just looking back. Because of the running horse and the relentless rain I was completely out of my mind. A group of people chasing the Crown Prince over his back could be seen dimly. Arrows and citations flew from there one after another. The Crown Prince pulled out the sword at a tremendous rate of reaction and struck out flying arrows and citations. Those bastards! The Crown Prince, who was not able to run away with continuous attacks, covered his brain with abusive language. "It's dangerous, so don't move, Princess." Callisto also struck an arrow and recited low. I felt his body tightened with tension. I was nervous too. No matter how much the main character says he won't die, he could have been hurt enough not to die. Besides, this is not a quest without resetting. It is not a game for me, but a reality. Slowly fear began to moisten my toes. A fierce chase took place on the rainy forest road. The distance has narrowed enough to recognize the shape of the unknown assailant. A group of humans dressed in black masks and black robes. It was obviously assassins. The other day I suddenly remembered a shocking scene in which the Crown Prince cut the head of an assassin brought by him during a banquet of the second prince's birthday. Is this what happens often to the Crown Prince? This not show up in normal mode? It was that moment, suddenly my eyes brightened. Second, protect the Crown Prince from the assassin. Will you proceed with the quest? Target 20 assassins. Compensation: symbol of assassination. Callisto's favorability plus 10%, reputation plus 50. Accept, reject. A white square window suddenly appeared behind the Crown Prince's back. I was so stunned I laughed like a bird. Soon after he distorted his face and became angry. I don't want to be a queen. Besides 20 assassins? I wanted to hit refuse countless times right away, but I couldn't. The favorability given as a reward was 10%. In normal mode you can raise it by mixing a few words, but you can't imagine it in hard mode as much as 10%. Main quest accepted automatic in 5 seconds. 5-4. I ended up crying and preparing to shoot the crossbow in front of me with courage. Don't move. Perhaps he was bothered by the wriggling in his arms. The Crown Prince gave me a hard warning, Your Highness. I called him in a gloomy voice. I think I can help you. What? You know that crossbow? I peeked at the hem of the cape, and showed it the crossbow that I had turned. I'll shoot everyone after you, so just cover for me. Princess, what the hell is that? Callisto's lips were slapping to speak to more, but I couldn't find time to hear it. Finally, a 5-second grace period has passed. Quest is automatically accepted 0/20 at the same time as the white letters in the square window turned into numbers. The body, which had been cowering in the prince's arms, sprang up. I then used his broad shoulders as elbow supports and loaded the crank with a mechanical hand gesture. I heard a pulley clinging to the trigger, then I closed one eye and aimed at the assassin. The heavy rain that blocked the view and the movement of the horse were no problem for me or for the system. As soon as an assassin sees me rising up, he tries to aim his bow at me. The index finger on the trigger moved straight away. The assassin who aimed disappeared from the horse. I hit it. The bead hit the mark without error. I could see a man who fell off the horse convulsed with shock. But I couldn't even feel the joy of looking at it, because my body was busy shooting at the other straight away. 7/20. I pulled the trigger and hit the guys who were chasing. In an instant I killed 7 people. The closely chasing men fell from the horse and crawled on the ground. Are the assassins embarrassed by the unexpected counterattack? The arrows began to fly in droves. Arrows brushed past by a hair's breadth, bloomed in the tree. However, the body, which had lost control, did not give in to the pouring arrow but shoot the crossbow. 10/20. As soon as the arrow grazed through the temple, I killed 3 more assassins. Come on, by then I didn't know if this quest really meant to kill the assassin or save me. Suddenly I felt a sense of incompatibility from the side. The system-occupied body turned violently to that side. Maybe the assassins was approaching from all sides in groups, and one fell to the floor from the tree with his death scream at that moment. Princess, the Crown Prince suddenly pulled down my waist and hugged me hard. The Crown Prince groaned low. The arrow hit on his left shoulder. Your Highness, one of the assassins who was approaching the side shot an arrow at the left side of the Crown Prince, who was not holding a knife. After shooting him, I flashed back and aimed at the crossbow. Are you all right, Your Highness? I honestly wanted to faint while shooting at the crossbow. I wanted to look back at his wound, but I couldn't do it by a body that was constantly swayed. What if it's not okay? Quite painful, the Crown Prince said nervously, but he soon added in a subdued voice. Don't be nervous, I'm wearing lightweight armor so I didn't get deeply shot. The Crown Prince answered back with a knife for another flying arrows. I was deeply relieved, and I brushed off a little resentment that got me involved in this fucking situation. Because if he hadn't just embraced me, it might have been my head to get hit by the arrow. Thank you, I mumbled timidly. It was fortunate that I could move my mouth as I please. The Crown Prince talked crookedly. How is that? Isn't this enough for Princess, who fully consistent with the reason for Princess Crush cycle, to answer me? I'm not the only one, that's a pity. He kicked his tongue at the sharp answer. He seemed fine again when I saw him talking nonsense. I feel a relief. Since then I've shot the crossbow frantically under the protection of the Crown Prince. The assassins were quick, different from the big slow-moving beast. However, the power of the game's system was the highest level of shooting the crossbow. The more steadily the number of beads was reduced, the more steadily the number of assassins was reduced. Now there are 4 left, 16/20. Princess, how many do we have left? Asked the Crown Prince unexpectedly. Just getting one more right. I took a short breath. I think there's about 3 left. Why? It's a dead end. At that moment, the horse that had been running ceaselessly stopped suddenly. When I rolled my eyes and checked the surrounding area, it was the end of the narrow cliff. It was hard to say anything. It's going to be hard for them to shoot their bows in close distance anyway, so we'd better get down and get rid of the rest down. The Crown Prince muttered so much that he picked me up and got off the horse. And I jumped off too, as there were no visible assassins. The system was briefly released. But there were still 3 men left, so I held the crossbow close and guarded against all sides. It's dangerous, so stay behind, said the Crown Prince, blocking my way. It was an unexpected remark from ML. However, the quest was protecting the Crown Prince from the assassins. Therefore I came out from behind him and stood next to him on an equal footing. It's all right, I'll take care of my body, so your highness can concentrate on preserving your body. He looked back at me with a face like he heard all sorts of strange noises. I'm the only one who's they after, so I'm always reassured. I felt a little prick, so I just ignored it and looked toward the forest. The forest was still without realizing it. There was no sign of rain except for the sound of a trace of rain. I stared at the white writing floating in the air, taking the baby hairs off my face because of the bite. 17/20. I wanted to get rid of the other 3 quickly and finish this tedious quest. It was then Wick. Several arrows flew from the bushes just in front of the cliff toward the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince has skillfully fished out the flying things. But as soon as he struck them, the 2 popped out of the bushes. The men who had taken out the dagger ran straight to the Crown Prince, who had barely taken all the citations. Your Highness, as soon as I was startled and shouted, the occupied body moved first. A man hit by a bead crumbled and cramped. But the other one and the Crown Prince's sword were met. He was aiming straight ahead to shoot the rest. He overlooked the fact that there was one more person left in the clash that took place in an instant. The last assassin, who was hiding in the bushes as soon as one fell, pulled out a long sword. Dead you bitch, but it was me, not the Crown Prince. The system was not optimized for all variables. My body, which was aiming at the one who was competing with the Crown Prince, turned toward the grotesque side that struck me a beat late. But it was already late, damn it. Avoid it, princess. At the same time as the Crown Prince's cry comes in, I pulled the trigger. As soon as the beads were shot out, the sword wielded by the assassin was also a step forward. He must have been knocked down by a bead I shot, but the distance was too close. I've already been through it once, but the system will only execute the shooting of the crossbow whether I die or not. Therefore I couldn't avoid a sharp knife that was closing in on the air. My eyes closed with a sharp snap, but at that moment, a firm and large thing hugged me. Around the time of being pushed back roughly by strong force and heavy weight. There was a shriek and a low moan. I opened my closed eyes. Blood soaked in rain were seen flying. It belonged to the Crown Prince, who ran away and embraced me after throwing away the sword fight. A knife stuck behind his back and an assassin knocked down by a crossbow I shot. It's over now, and another guy running to the end was seen in turn. The whole process proceeded as slowly as ever. I was unable to support the prince's body, who was unable to control his power in a hurry to hit me. My body was pushed helplessly to the edge of the cliff. Princess, I'm sorry, the Crown Prince, hugging my waist with his hands, whispered in my ears. I think we're on the verge of falling. My hair stood on end the moment I felt empty behind my back. A dizzying sensation swept through my body. Even at the moment of falling down the cliff, my hand holding the crossbow automatically moved and aimed over the Crown Prince's shoulder. 2020 by the time I got rid of the last one. Main quest: let's be the queen of the game. Second, defending the Crown Prince from assassination quest success. Reward: Assassin's Badge, Callisto's Favor plus 10% fame plus 50 gained fame, total 130 crazy. With the white letters set in the background instead of the sky, I and the prince began to fall down to a dark cliff. I heard the firewood burning from somewhere. I opened my eyes vaguely. With a hazy view, there was the first spark to be seen. Since then, strange rock walls have also seen. Where is this place? I strained my arms and raised myself from my slouch. At that moment, the cloth that had been covered over me flowed down, and I felt a cool air on my skin. Unconsciously lowering my head, I opened my eyes to my exposed shoulders. I hurried through the cloth and found myself naked in my underwear. Moreover, the cloth covered over my body was the Crown Prince's red cape. What the hell, are you awake? Then a heavy low-pitched sound rang out over there. As I turned my head reflexively, I opened my mouth wide, a hard chest with scars everywhere, bumpy abs. Yes, the Crown Prince proudly walked this way, naked in his upper body. What are you doing? I was shocked, covering my eyes with both hands. Why are you walking around naked? He dropped the firewood he had brought by a bonfire. Then he flopped down in front of it, and answered casually. Then should I keep walking around in wet clothes? I don't want to do that. What should I do? The one who glanced at me grinned and added. And isn't it the same as a princess who's naked? You filthy, I don't think that's what the beholder should say with all his fingers open. Why don't you just look it up straight? I coughed loudly and slipped my hand down. Then he gave a sneering look. I became falsely accused. It's because I'm afraid I'll have a black heart while blindfolded. I was never meant to see his upper body, never. I stared closely at the prince's cloak and looked at him with a glance. So my clothes, your highness, what he shrugged and confirmed. Thanks to that we've already in relationship who have seen everything. Please stop saying such terrible things. I was fed up with his reply. The crown prince looked back at me as if dumbfounded. Isn't that too much for a man who brought you here with so much hard work? So why do you touch a lady's body without permission? Then should I have let you alone whether you'll die or not? Yes, what you should just let me in, have kept to your duty and let it go. Or wake me up at my reply. He laughed and spat out. You have nothing to see now. What did you say? I stammered in amazement at his enormous remarks. I said you had nothing to see. Why do I have nothing to see? So there's a lot to see actually. The cave was so dark that I couldn't see it properly. Should we check it out now? I managed to swallow a pop-up curse. I'd rather bear it. He's the crown prince. The crown prince and the crown prince with 2% favorability. I muttered in my mind, engraving be patient, and suddenly my eyes grew bigger in the white letters that stood out. Favorability 25%. The changing favorability of the crown prince reminded me of a forgotten quest. Assassin's badge. Callisto's favor plus 10% fame plus 50 gained fame, total 130. The crown prince's favorability has become quite far from death. After all, that fucking quest was a success. What was your favorite part of this video? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell icon for notifications.